OTAs, within the rules what they allow you to do. It's kind of like halfway through spring ball in the first part of it, and the second part of it is a little bit different. But it is always difficult to come back after a little bit of a break. And I thought we did a good job today. As you guys saw, we took off the shoulder pads and a little bit of something that we're trying to figure out what it is that we can do, not being in full pads or not being in shoulder pads every single day, right? I mean, there's a little bit of a, I don't say a change, but an ability for us to figure out what's going to give us the best opportunity, trying things in spring ball that can carry over to fall camp, and just the way we prepare our guys. We got a lot of new guys that we got to find out a lot about, but we also got a lot of older guys that you do have to be smart about what it is you're doing. So as you'll notice, Tuesdays probably will look like this a little bit more. Wednesdays will look like shells, and Saturdays will be full pads. And we'll go live and stuff on Saturday, and give us a chance to, get a better understanding of who we got and what we've got. And it's not going to be 50-play scrimmages, 60-play scrimmages with live action, but every week, if we can get outside, in particular on the grass on Saturdays, it's going to be an opportunity for us to get some live ball in and see what our backs can do, see what our wideouts can do, see if we can take care of the football, and see if we can tackle defensively. But it's a little bit of a progression. It's great to be back.
How does spring practice change when you have this many newcomers? How is it different than in the past?
I don't know that it's a whole lot different. I mean, every year is a new year, and every year you're trying to figure out what the nature of the leadership and culture is going to continue to grow to be. I just think it's a little bit more of an unknown in the sense that you got so many new guys, and in our case, so many new guys that, I'd say have a great opportunity to play a big role. In the past, maybe we've had a quarterback, and maybe we've had one or two other guys that you might think are going to play a significant role. Now I think we've got a bunch of other guys who are going to play significant roles. So I think that's where that idea of, hey, we got to practice. We got to try to stay as healthy as you possibly can in spring, because that's what usually happens, right? You get limited with the number of guys, so it's hard to get younger guys work, but then you never have a chance sometimes to figure out what you can really do by going live. And so we're going to try to work this progression of maybe in no pads on Tuesday and shells, and then be able to go a little bit live on Saturday, because we do need to find out a lot about not just ourselves, but all the guys in the program.
It's still early. It's still early, but what have your impressions been of Colton Joseph so far, and how he can change the dynamic?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot to learn. I mean, I think I did a little sit down and talk with them, not trying to take Matt LePay's job or anything, but kind of just to get to know some of these guys, because they're new too. And there's a lot that I've realized from them, how much is on the plate coming into a new system with a lot of the things that we do offensively. And so it's hard to judge. He dropped the ball in the first play of team today, and you could just see he's got great hands. You could just see the wheels that are turning, how much is on his plate. So I think when the ball goes down and you just play, I think I've seen a little bit more of what he can do. And so that's a little bit of that idea on Saturdays. You won't put the quarterback live, but the ability to go some live ball to see what also comes out in a guy like Colton, because what he's done's been good. I think giving him the ability to kind of play a little bit more is where I think we got to find out how much more we can put on his plate.
Following up on Colton a little bit, because you've mentioned the idea that the quarterback has to be kind of the leader of the whole program, not just his own spot. Just what have you seen from him in the last few weeks as he's getting a little more acclimated and getting to know the guys?
You're seeing him loosen up a little bit. I think that it's obviously, as we all know, it's a high-stress position, and there's a lot piled onto those guys' plates, and not just from the nature of the offense, but also an expectation thing too. And so there's a guy with high expectations, and you can come in and you can see a little bit of a natural tightness that he wants to lead, but he's got so much to learn that each and every day, I think, especially practice-wise, you're seeing him become a little bit more loose in what he's doing. And I think that it comes along with making a few plays. It comes along with, the things that go on around you. But I think that's that progression that, is good to see. And, it was one of those guys on break that I reminded him, like, you don't need to go and be throwing 6 days. We've done a lot of football. You've done a lot of football since you've been here. There is an opportunity, and you need to take it to relax a little bit too. And I think he came back a little bit more, refreshed and even in a leadership role.
Have you been impressed at all with what Ryan Hopkins did? Who's a true freshman coming in and playing the way that he is?
Yeah, Ryan, he's obviously beyond his years a little bit. I think that coming out of the program, which he did, and also transferring, I think, he went to Mater Dei a senior year. So he had to be thrown into a situation as a senior that he had to go compete to win the spot. He had to go in there and obviously play around a lot of great players that were number one in the country at one point in time. I think maybe we don't recognize how much that makes a guy grow. And I think that if there's anything that you've seen from him walking in the door here, there's a maturity level, there's a growth, not just in learning the offense, but understanding what that position looks like at this level.
Without mentioning specific names, there's been a lot of in-state
Yeah.
recruiting success lately. Has the staff changed its approach at all, or is it just developing better relationships over time?
It's all. It's everything. I think that the good thing about it all is I think that you are seeing, at least in particular in the recruiting side of things, that there's a confidence level in the things that we're doing. And sometimes it's hard to see because it always comes down to wins. But guys that are inside the program, guys that come to the program, they do see something that's growing. And I think that's a big thing for us. But I also think it's a great year in the state. I think our coaches have done a great job. But it takes a couple, catalysts to doing those things as well. And so there's a lot of credit that needs to be kind of thrown around for how this thing has gone. But a lot of it has to fall on those guys' shoulders, those families' shoulders that have been here and seen the things that are growing, just hasn't been as obvious to the outside.
Just going back to all the newcomers, anything specifically you've done in this spring practice just to make sure everybody gets to know one another, to build chemistry, different?
Nothing out of the ordinary. I think that we do those kinds of things in the winter. We push it and force it for guys going out to eat and getting with coaches and getting to the homes, and we do a lot more of it in after spring and through the summer stuff. I think it's the most important thing is understanding and recognizing the respect you got to have for one another. And I think competing on the field and doing the things that we do is the greatest way to learn more about each other. And so that's I'm not saying it's abnormal from college football. It's just, again, usually you're not meeting and learning a lot about guys that are in their fifth and sixth year or fourth year in college football. Usually those are the guys and it's the young guys coming in. So I think the best thing we can do is learn who they are on the field and then be able to grow those things in particular through the summer.
It seems like Cheeks has really been challenging your offensive tackles this spring. Kind of what stood out to you most about what he's done this spring so far?
I think that it starts with a little bit of leadership. I think Cheeks is one of those guys that's always been pretty comfortable in his own skin and has done a really good job here at kind of solidifying what he does and how he does it. His ability to step outside of that and understand that there's a lot of people that he affects around him. And it's not just him. I'm not saying that he's not, but by nature, that's just his nature of what he does. He takes care of himself. He's a pro at everything he does. I think his ability to kind of affect others around him a little bit more is where we've challenged him, and I think that you're seeing it even grow more on the football field because of it. He recognizes on a daily basis that there's an example that he sets to a lot of people.
When you talk about that ramp up each week, like maybe Tuesday's a little lighter in terms of like the pads and everything, how does that affect the offensive line? How do you kind of challenge those guys to get the work in that they need to on those lighter days?
That's what we got to go watch and see on film. If it really, I praised them a little bit after practice about how they handled it up front, and a lot of that has to do with emotion because when you take the shoulder pads off, you're going to get hit in the shoulder at some point in time, and usually that's when the emotions start to flare up. But it was a suggestion from a group of guys that I meet with, the kind of the captains of the spring or the leaders of the spring, and the idea of ramping up through the week, kind of like a game week, where you go light and early after a game, and then you play on Saturday. The idea of being in spiders to the guys up front, the mentality, it doesn't back off much. So they said, well, let's see if we can't get enough done that we need to get done, work the things we need to work at trying to take the physicality in particular off the guys up front. And it looked pretty decent today. We've got to go watch it and see if it's something that we can continue to build on.
Coach, just going back to Colton really quick, with as much as he's needed to balance, what did the process look like for him sort of getting in here at the beginning of spring to kind of hit the ground running?
Well, I think that knowing first and foremost when he walks in the door that he's been really put in the position to lead. I think that, yes, there's always competition, and you always got to say, look, everybody has an opportunity to play, and the best players are going to play. But walking in the door to say, look, your job is not only to learn this offense and learn the intricacies of what does you do as we figure out what your strengths are as well, it's also to lead. And so I think that all that being thrown on a plate is a lot more than maybe even he or anybody recognizes it. And so he's done a great job at that. He's kind of taken that under his wing and trying to figure out the balance, I'm sure, for him if you talk to him. And how much do I spend leadership-wise? How much do I spend just with the offense-wise? How much do I, apply upon myself? I think that that's a balance that he's going to continue, just like all the quarterbacks, are going to have to figure out as they continue to progress this thing.
What do you like most about Deuce Adams so far?
Deuce has done a really good job, and he's in a position where it's a little bit more difficult. Everybody walking in the door that, the day one when we went out there that Colton was going to go with the ones. And Deuce understands that, but he also believes and understands that, look, everything is earned. And so no matter where you come in, it's ultimately where you finish. And he's done a really good job through the winter. He's come out here in spring, and in the first 5 practices, he's done a really good job at leading in his way from the position at which he is at. But you can see a growth too and understand the offense, and he's got a lot more athleticism, speed, and some things than maybe I would have known coming, watching his film out of college. And so he's a really good all-around football player that we got to give some more opportunities to, even sometimes the ones.
Grady Ewing was announced last week as the director of alumni relations. Just what do you like about him in that role, and how have you guys gotten to know each other over the last 6 to 8 months as this has kind of become a thing?
You know what? I'm still getting to know him. I mean, I think that all that we're trying to do is making sure that we can put as many people around our guys that can lead in a positive way, as many guys around us that we can trust to be all in the things that we're doing. And the little time that I've known Brady, that's exactly who he is. What his role is, and we talked about this, and that role, just like most people in our program, the number one thing you got to have is flexibility. Let's figure out what it is that your strengths are. Yes, the alumni relations and the former player relations is a big part of it, but man, there's a big part of making sure that you understand how do you connect with these guys in this football field. How can you connect the guys in the football field, whether they've been here for 6 years or 1 year, to a lot of the other guys from the past. And there's a lot of things that he'll be asked to do, but there's a lot of things I'm going to say, hey, you got to take this position and be able to run with it. How can you make us better on the field, off the field, and in particular, with the formers and with in the community.
Going back to Colt, when you have a guy, we're recruiting a guy who's succeeded the way he has at the group of 5 level, how do you just figure out what can translate, what can't translate to the Big Ten?
Winning translates, and I think that's where, when it really comes down to it, and I always use it for like, hey, if you're going to go build your quarterback in these video games that you guys all play, I don't. If you're going to build them, where are you going to put all your, where are you going to put the energy? Where are you going to put the power, right? And some people would say, in their arm and their speed and their intelligence, and so I'd put it first in guys that can win, guys that find ways to make everybody around them better as leaders and can find a way to win. And so that's what's great to be able to see, what he's done and what he did at that. It doesn't matter what level it is, winning is winning. And so understanding that he wants more, and there's a progression to it, and there's a competitive spirit to it too. And so all those things that you thought you saw, we saw from watching the last couple of years of him play, it is held true. And so that's why I'm kind of excited about getting to, and I want to get past Tuesday and Thursday, but getting the ability to play some Saturdays where we can put the ball down and have live situations and let them play to see how guys continue to take their game and grow their game, and in particular confidence.
Coach, you just mentioned that flexibility is one of the most important qualities to have in this program. What does that look like for the players and for you guys as coaching staff?
Well, I mean, for us in particular, I hear like this, to go in a helmets in a spring practice. I mean, it took a couple. I twitched every time we walked out here. I say like, spring practice in particular has been about, hey, physical, can you pound? You got 15 practices and 34 days, and we got a toughness, and I don't want to get away from that, but I think there's all a growth of what we have to be able to do. These guys, they've got to become really, really tight and really close with guys that they're competing with and they don't know, right? I mean, the guys that have moved in here, have come in here. It is a little bit of the landscape of where we are in college athletics and college football in particular, but it's not like everybody else has got to be able to adapt and adjust, and we're going to do things the way we've always done them. We have core values, we have core things that we have, but we also know that there's a growth on our part. I think that's got to be the example to all those guys.
When you have so many new pieces, new coach and the O-line, kind of what are you realistically looking for in this spring from that position?
That's the number one thing offensively, is the continuity of those guys up front. And I'm not going to dwell upon the past, but if there's something that has probably not gone in the direction, in particular individually or unit-wise, it has been the O-line. And with the history here and what the expectations are here, that's one of the big things. And look, we got to get back to that group being a group. It's not individuals. There's a lot of things we got to be able to do, and that's what I really love about it. To be honest with you, I love being in that room right now, because there's different. There's all new guys, right? I mean, there's some guys that played a little bit in Cubberley and Emerson Mandel, but the nature of it is it's a new group. And yes, they understand the history. Yes, they understand the past. But it's time to kind of say, look, this is a group that's got to kind of reestablish the things that we believe in and we are, and obviously what have been said here. And I think that's where a lot of the youth and the newer guys has been a really refreshing kind of, a little bit of a changeover.